All right, stat students, so this is probably going to be the last lesson of this unit, and we are planning on taking our test very soon. I will send out information about that. So I want to go through a little bit more standard deviation today, and then we have a few more finishing topics that we're going to be looking at. I know the last video was pretty long. This one will probably be long as well, but we're just sort of closing things up and going over final ideas. You guys will have a practice quiz that you'll be doing. Okay, I'll probably put that up towards the end of this week. Okay, or tomorrow even. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You recently had to do and I put the topics on the bottom left of the screen, by the way. So down here you'll see what we're going to be talking about. So you recently had a homework assignment, and it was this: calculating standard deviation. And on here you'll see that you have definitions and stuff like that. And we've talked about standard deviation. It is the average distance from the mean. Okay, and in my little song we sang that in class, but it's the average distance to the mean. But still, there's a lot of confusion around it, and the reason I said we're not done with standard deviation in the last video, we just introduced it. This is probably the most important topic. I'm going to go full camera for this. So I had a student 2 years ago that failed first semester stats. Okay, and the second semester she's doing like her remediation, getting her grade back up, and she ended up passing, of course, and she actually did really well for the rest of the year, because one day, I think it was January or February, she was working on something and she looks up and says, "So that's what standard deviation is." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I looked at the problem she's working on. I was like, "Yes, it's very important." From that point, she got A's and B's on every single test that we had. Okay, so when I say that this is super important for statistics, I really do mean it. Okay, so if you are confused about standard deviation, reach out to me so that we can work through a few more ideas. I've got a few things in mind that we're going to talk about today. You'll be answering questions in this video. So this assignment should be turned in at this point. You should have turned it in, and but I know there's a lot of confusion about it. All right, so I'm going to work through it with you guys, and I'm going to try to speed it up, because I think most of you should have this filled in. First off, we start at the top. We want to know, what is N? Well, N is 10. There's 10 test scores on here. Now, the rest of this, you can fill in, if you would like, with your calculator. So on my calculator, I have put all the data in, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. I don't need you to do all of this by hand. It's just the deviation we're doing by hand. So I'm going to go back in here. I need to go over to a blank cell, menu 411, get our statistics here. And so we know the mean is 66. Let's go down and let's find the median. So median is 68.5. So we're going to write all that in here. So 68.5. Then 66 was the mean. And then the mode. Mode we haven't really discussed. I think that they have a definition up here. Mode is something I expect most people to know. It is the value that occurs the most frequently in a set of data. If we look at this data, is there anything occurring frequently? No. So we're going to put none. And then the range, which I said we're kind of not using that much anymore, but we can do maximum minus minimum. So you can see that the range is actually 80 on here. And then we can graph this distribution. Let's make a dot plot just so we have an idea about what it looks like. And there it is. Okay, so we have our graphed distribution. So what we're going to do is do this all by hand, the standard deviation. We've already found the standard deviation, so we know the answer to our problem. Here's standard deviation, 30.4375 is going to be our final answer for this process. But we're going to go ahead and fill in the table. So on the first table, you're putting your values. It is the test scores X. So I'm going to edit this so that I just go ahead and fill it in. And poof, we have them all in. Okay, so order doesn't matter. A lot of you may have reordered these from lowest to greatest, but a calculator is going to reorder these for us. If I'm going to have you sort anything, I would rather you do it with a calculator. Watch, if I go up here, go to the top of my list, if I hit menu, actions, sort, ascending, There it is. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, you don't need to sort things by hand. We have a computer that can sort it for us if we want to. So I'm not worried about that. Also, sorting this doesn't matter. All right, next, we want to find the difference from the mean. So that would mean I'm going to take each test score and subtract the mean with it. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. So this is going to be 22 minus 66. That equals negative 44. And it's okay to get negatives in this case, but we're going to go ahead and fill in this table, and I'm going to edit it so that it's instant. All right, so just like that, we filled this in, and it's just the differences from the mean. So that's part of our formula for standard deviation. We're finding the distance to each point. So going back to our graph here, data collection, let me, this is not it, hold on. This is it here. If I take a screenshot of this, let me make sure that it's, if I take a screenshot of this, put this on my my graph here, so let's paste that. So there's the graph. If I drew a line, we'll make it red, and I'll make it blue, and I want it to go through 66 here. So this will be, I'm drawing my mouse, this is X bar, right? That's our mean. All of these distances, so for instance, going back to this, from 22 to 66, 22 is the lowest value, that's the minimum. So from the center all the way out here, we're saying that that's negative 44, right? But it's impossible to have a negative value for distance. Like, this is a measurement, right? This goes from that blue line out to that point. It has a positive distance, but when we're doing the calculation, that's causing it to be negative. So that's what this third column's for. And in the formula, in the song that I had written, that's why we have to square all these values. The square eliminates the negatives. So we're going to fill this in. What I need to do is I need negative 44 squared. Now you need to make sure you use parentheses around this when you're doing that. I'll just pull up a simple calculator. So 44, I need that to be negative, and I'm going to square it. Now that should be positive always. Usually you want to use parentheses. So I'd put 44 parentheses and then square it. But it's 1936, so 1936. And we're going to do that for all of these. So I'm going to square the 33 and fill this in. And I'd like you, if you haven't done this already, do it with me. All right, so we've put all these values in. And now what that does is that gets rid of that negative for us, okay? Because we can't have negative distances. But if we're using an equation like this or a formula, when they were developing it, they wanted a fast way to do all of this instead of going to each value and saying, oh, okay, well, I know that this has to be a positive length, so they just make it positive. So they needed a process to make it quicker, especially if you have a very large set of data. This is just 10. So I'm sure that you're already like me, and if I have to do this, it's very annoying to do it by hand. I want a computer to do it for me, right? So, and this is a typo here, put a square here. So there was some confusion about this symbol here, feedback that I got from people. Remember that this is sigma. I think we wrote that in our notes. So that's sigma, and it means to sum. And you'll notice how the whole reason we've been going through these columns here is to do the work that is here. So right here, x minus x bar squared. That's this right here. So this is telling us that we want to add them all up. We're going to add all these up, sum. So it's the sigma of these. We're going to add every single one of these up. So let's go ahead and do that. You would have to do it one at a time. Super annoying, but that's what you have to do to get this to work. So here is the value you should have. You should have 8338 is the total for that. Now this number right here represents this. Okay? That's what that is. So when I write this equation down here, it's going to be 8338 over what's called n minus 1. This is the degrees of freedom. They write a couple notes in here. divided by n minus 1. This is for a sample, n for a population. We're not going to worry about that too much. We're just going to go ahead and do n minus 1. Well, what was n? I go back up. N was 10. Okay. So n is 10. So it's 9 on the bottom. Let's go ahead and do that division. I'm going to use the Inspire to actually do this. So I'm going to use on my calculator, I want 8338 divided by 9. What you're going to notice is it will give me a fraction. If I keep hitting enter, it's going to keep doing that. So a couple ways to do this. To get a decimal, you can just put a decimal on it and it will give you the value. We want 926444, and I believe that 4 is repeating. So we're going to put 926.4. Hold on, let me start. 926.4 repeating. This goes into this space, so I'm just going to circle. That's where that goes. This is called the variance. You do need to know what variance is. That is important. Variance is the is before taking a square root. And let's think about this. This can't be our final answer. If we go back here, if we have 926, does that look how I have this red line? Is that the average distance to the mean? No, the furthest distance is 44. So we know that this is not a reasonable distance from the mean. So the variance is not that, it is just the distance from the mean that is squared. Okay, the average squared distance is what we call variance. So that's not what we have. To finish this off, we have to take the square root. So down here on the back of your sheet, you have the standard deviation is the square root of what you just calculated, the variance. So we want square root of 8338. I'm not going to round. I want this to be exact over 9. So let me show you what I want to do on the calculator. I'm going to do Control X squared to get that. Then I'm just going to go back up. Instead of typing it in, I'm just going to hit enter and it pastes it in for me. It's really nice. You hit enter, 30.4375 is the standard deviation. Is that the answer we got when we started? Let's go check it out. Let's go to over here, 30.4375. No, all right. Yeah, we got it. Check that out. So that is doing it by hand. And on in that last video, we had written, or I had shown you that I had written this song. Let me go to it. There it is. Okay. So we sing it. Oh, the standard deviation, it describes the spread of data. How should we define it? Test question right here. It's the average distance to the mean. So let's talk through what we did. The red part, which is much more difficult to sing, but it still sort of flows. You take each value, first of all, take each value, and then you look in the front. There they are, right? The first row is take each value, subtract it with the mean. That's the middle one, right? Subtract it with the mean. Square those differences right here in the third column. Why do we do that? To get rid of negatives, okay? And add them up. That's this bottom part. That's part. The sigma, add them up, sum them up. Divided by the degrees of freedom. That's this n minus 1 down here. And here's the song that says, that's the variance. And then go to the back, square root, you're done. So that's why the song flows in it. It actually makes sense to look at, to use that for this formula. Again, are you going to have to, on a test, memorize this formula? Not really. What I'm trying to instill here is the concept of standard deviation. That's really what I want, okay? The concept of standard deviation. So you need to finish the back here, A through D. You don't have to do these by hand. Use the calculator to do it. But I want you to describe the mean and standard deviation in words. So let's do that for ours. So what is the mean here? 66. This is the average test score, okay? All right, so then what is standard deviation? So we're gonna say the average distance from the mean, the average score is 30 above, or, and so it goes either way, right? 30 above or 30 below the mean. That's what that means. So that's what I want to see when you're describing this in words, okay? You'll calculate, and this is what you'd write, by the way. All I need to see on here is x bar equals and standard deviation equals. How do you get that? Well, you're just using your calculator. You do 411 x bar, boom, write it down. S of x, write it down. Okay, that's all you need to do, but then describe it in words. So the back's actually pretty quick, pretty simple. And if you feel like you made a mistake, I do want you to go back and fix it. So I know I had it due before this lesson has actually come out. So go back and fix and resubmit for me if you feel like you didn't do it correct. It's just my timing. I didn't get this lesson out in time. Okay. I'm actually going to go ahead and stop this lesson here and then make a separate video because it's just going to flow a little bit better. We're 15 and a half minutes in here. So let me go ahead and stop, and then we'll get you started with the very last video, and I'll maybe make that due the next day. Okay.